So I'm going to talk to you in a bit for the closing session, or the closing words, and then so I see you in a little while. Yes, loud and clear, Stephen.
Very good, very good. So welcome to the presentation. And my name is Stephen
Flaherty. I work as pre-sales technical specialist for Fresche Solutions. Today I'm going to go over some of the key features of X analysis and then do a demo so that can become much more clear when you see it in action. We're going to talk today about the impact analysis. That's the variable where used features and functions within the software. We will review the data model. We've got several graphical charts that come with the package. We'll review those, and we'll take a look at some of the business rules that get extracted from your RPG or programs. And we'll go over the auditing, X audit, which is also known as metrics. So let's get right into the demo. So the installation of X analysis is really a two-step process. The first step is just to install our library, XAProd, onto your IBM I, and that's where all of our programs, software, menus, and commands reside. Once that's installed, just a bit about how X analysis works is you're going to see the term cross-reference library, and you're going to see the term repository used interchangeably within our software package. So the first thing we're going to ask of you is to provide X analysis with all of your program object libraries, your data object libraries, and your source object libraries. And what we're going to do is we're going to submit a batch job that's going to create a brand new library on your IBM I. And what we're going to do is we're going to read every line of source code, and we're going to build out a brand new repository. And this is going to be a heavily indexed library that X analysis is going to use for the charts, the graphs, the lists, the variable where used. And that brings us to the second step of the installation process, which is installing our client. We ship the Eclipse runtime with the package, and you can have unlimited licenses per IP address and LPARs within that IP address. If you are using RDI in your shop today, you can certainly continue to use RDI, and we just act as an additional plugin to that. So just to show you real quick, I'm going to right mouse click. Here's the repository that I just showed you on the IBM I. This was built based on, it's a read-only process. So while we're building out the repository, we are not changing any of your source code, your objects, your data. We're not modifying your system in any way, shape, or form. So what we do is on the left side, you can see these are my object libraries. On the right side, my source libraries. I have a small demo library, so my source and object happen to be in the same library. So here's my navigation pane, and here is my perspective window. I don't have anything out in the perspective window because I haven't requested anything from the navigation pane, but I will right now. Let's select all objects. Now we'll have a UI that comes up and I can filter that, but for today's demonstration, I will request all objects, and I'm produced a list of 387 objects. Climbing down the navigation tree, I'll go to Programs. And I get another window with another tab with just the programs. Let me request my files. So every time I make a request from the navigation tree, I'm presented with yet another window. Keep in mind that each one of these windows, each one of these lists can be exported to PDF, Word, or Excel. So that if you want to create a technical design document, you can export this information and bring that into a Word document. At the end of the demo, I'm going to show you a much easier way to gather up all of these tabs and all of this information in one UI, which will create a nice looking technical design document. Now let's go into the data model diagram. The data model diagram is a representation of all of your files in your repository. I happen to only have 33. These lines represent the connections and the relationships between these files. If I want to become more laser focused just on the cusp file, I can select that, double click, and I'm presented with yet another window with just my 9 files. One of the claims to fame to X analysis is right mouse click. You can right mouse click on any of the lists, any of the pictures, and you're going to be presented with what we call a context menu. This provides us to go where from anywhere technology. So let's see, I can look at the source for this physical file. I can right mouse click again, and I can get a list of the file field details. I can right mouse click again, and there's many other things I can do. I can look at a sampling of the data. So coming back to my file field details, let's now talk about impact analysis. Say, for instance, I was asked to come into this physical file, go to this customer group field, and we want to change the attribute from 2 positions to 4. What is the impact of making such a change on my system? Again, right mouse click, file field where used. Let's look at the all references. What this is going to present me with is a list of every single line of code in my system where that field is currently being used. However, we know that the story doesn't stop there. If you note the level 1, this is giving me the level 1 usage for this field. But we know that this field can be moved to a work field, a save field, a parameter list, a chain, a printer file field, a screen field. So we have a feature in the product called levels. Give me the level 2 moves of where that field is being used. So now that you see that the lines of source have increased to 115 and the level is duly noted here, I can see that it's used in a parameter. Now it's used in an S field. And I can continue on displaying the levels. Cascading parameters are also included, but I've been asked to look for every place. So let me go to maximum tracking. Maximum tracking will give me every single place that this field is being used. It's 161 lines of code. You can see my member name here. You can see the source statement here. You can see the line of code. And, oh, by the way, we do give you embedded SQL, and we also give you free RPG. Coming back to the list of programs, let me scroll down to a program www.costs. Now again, I could double click on this from the list and go right into the source, or I can simply right mouse click, go up to zoom the source. Let's take a look at the RPG source for this program. Right now we're looking at the source code, but say for instance, I'm working with a Java programmer, a business analyst, somebody who really can't read RPG code. Well, we provide you with the pseudocode for every single program. Again, as we're reading every line of code and building the repository, we're ripping out and we're presenting you with this information. Additionally, I'm going to give you the indented source code as well, which is going to give you the beginning and end of each if and do loop. If this RPG program has a display file associated with it, I can click on the green button, and that's going to present me with the screen format, as well as the screen name fields, the XY coordinates, the field name, as well as the file that it refers to. To advance to the next record format within this display file, I click on the arrow, and you can see I can have a much more robust list, and we will provide you with the attributes, display attributes for those fields as well. Keeping in mind that I can still export this list, so that if you're working on a project, you can share that with all of your coworkers or whoever is working on the project at that point in time. Coming back to the list of programs, let's review some of the charts and graphs that come shipped with the product. Right mouse click again. Let's look at the data flow diagram, the hierarchy chart, and the structure chart diagram. Let's start with the data flow diagram. That's going to present me with the data flow diagram for this RPG program. And that is highlighted in red. That's telling me I have 8 called programs, 6 input files, 1 input, and 1 update output. Note on the files, if I expand the attribute, we're going to provide you with just those fields that are used from that file in this program. So you don't have to recompile this program in QTemp, scroll to the bottom, make note of all that information. All of this information has been done for you and it resides in the repository. If I want to look at the same data flow diagram for the physical file, I simply double click on it. And now I'm presented with the same diagram, only now I'm looking at the information with regard to the physical file. 25 input programs, 1 input output, 1 output, 8 update, and 14 update programs. And yes, we will provide you with queries and we will provide you with trigger programs. Keep in mind that if you had to manually create this flow chart or this diagram, how long that would take you to do the research, climb through the code, jump into Visio or ABC flowchart or draw this box, key in this information. This would take you hours, if not days, to create. Let's take a look at the hierarchy chart. And again, go anywhere from anywhere technology. I don't have to go back to the list of programs to right mouse click. I'm doing it from the actual diagram to go into the hierarchy chart. We're all familiar with the hierarchy chart. I have 4 levels of calls here. Very nice program, very nice chart. And with each chart that I'm presenting today comes with a color-coded key legend, which can easily discern which program is an update, a display, a print, and so forth. Now, let's go into the structure chart diagram. The structure chart diagram represents the entire invocation stack for this RPG program. And we also provide a show files button, which is going to bring in all of the files at each call level. Additionally, as I hover over the RPG program with my mouse, you're going to see a narrative box pop up. The narrative, again, as we're reading every line of code and we're creating this repository, we are reading the actual executable lines of logic, and we're creating an English version of what's going on in that program at every level. So not only are you getting the narrative, you're also getting the pseudocode. So when you have a new employee or you have a Java programmer, you can give them all this information so that they can very easily work independently with very little babysitting on your part. Now, I told you in the beginning I could download each individual tab and export that into PDF, Word, Excel. Now, I'm going to show you an easier way to do that. I'm going to highlight the RPG program and I'm going to right mouse click, and I'm going to go down to what we call Mark for Documenter. And I'm going to select the physical file today that I've been working with, and I'm going to mark that for documentation as well. We have an icon, Documenter. I'm going to click on this icon. And here are the 2 objects that I marked for documentation today. I'm going to generate a new document. And I'm going to create a Word document. I'm going to name it that. I'm going to give it a description. And this is the UNC path to where I'm going to put this document when I'm done. Now, here's the UI that's important. So this UI represents all of the tabs that I just opened up for you today. So I want the object list, the data model diagram, all of my logical files, give me the file field details for the physical, the objects where used, the data flow diagram, the structure chart, and give me my screen prints. Next. This is going to be the table of contents that will be presented in my Word document today in the order in which you see here. If you want to move them up and down and rearrange them, you can. I'm going to create an 8.5 by 11 document. I click Finish. and this is what you get. This is what X analysis generates for documentation. This document represents the demo that I just did for you today. Let's take a look and see what we get. Here are the color-coded key legends. Here's the name of my document, description, date and time. Here are the selected options from that user interface. Here are the objects that I'm documenting today. And here's my data model diagram for the physical file. Logical views over the physical file. And my file field details with the attributes, description, field name, objects we are used for the physical file. And then we come into the data flow diagram for the RPG program. The data flow diagram for the physical file. Keep in mind that's a lot of boxes if you had to draw this manually. And here's the structure chart diagram. And oh, by the way, there was a checkbox to bring in the narrative. That was that narrative pop-up box that I presented to you. We could bring that in as well. And then finally, my screen formats. Format number 1 with the fields. Format number 2 with their field names. And finally, the last record format for the display file. So in essence, I created a 35-page technical design document in under 45 seconds. Coming back to the client. Let's go back over to the navigation tree. And I want to talk about application areas. So what I've done thus far is I've talked about Fresh View. Fresh View is the data model, the impact analysis, and the interactive documentation. Fresh View does not include exporting those lists to PDF, Word, or Excel, or the Documenter feature. That's included in Fresh Advisor, as well as what I'm about to discuss is application areas, X Audit, and X Rules. Application areas. So if I want to focus on just, for instance, accounting, I can define all of those objects from my main repository and separate those out to an application area. This is not another library on your IBM I. It's an area that I defined within my main repository. My main repository has everything about my system: order entry, purchasing, shipping, EDI. But Mary, she supports accounting. She only cares about accounting. But now management comes to Mary and they say, we're going to take this antiquated accounting package and we're going to replace it with JD Edwards. Go off and do the research and find out where all the interfaces are, the bridges, find out what these files touch. So instead of Mary panicking, we give her this button, which gives her all of the blue boxes. The blue boxes represent the areas that accounting touches in some way, shape, or form. They have nothing to do with accounting, but we might chain out to this file to get the project number. We might chain back to EDI to get the customer's item number. So now Mary has a good head start of knowing where she has to research to find out how she's going to replace these yellow boxes with JD Edwards. Climbing back up the tree, let's go into business rules. As we're reading every line of code in your system, we're pulling out the business rules by member. So every program represented here will have the business rules. So I use this as an example. The contract header, in this member, it's hard-coded with contract greater than 300,000. Say, for instance, I'm going to make a change to that, and I'm going to add 500,000 to that. Well, if I made that coding change in 7 other RPG programs, I need to know that and be assured that I'm not going to miss anything. The business rules will give you that ability. Also, if I'm going to rewrite this program, again, I use the example of a Java programmer. or a business analyst doing a technical design document, you're changing the code, but you're not changing the business rules. The rules of the business haven't changed. You have to make sure that you incorporate all of these rules within that program. This goes along with consolidated rules. Consolidated rules will give you the same information, only in a tree format. So let's go down to contract header, and you can very easily see everywhere that this has been hard-coded and all of the members that I need to go into and make sure that I researched and made that change accordingly. One final thing that I'd like to go over is auditing. We're going to go into the metrics dashboard, and I'm going to go into problem analysis. We're gathering all kinds of good information about your system that you should be aware of. And one of those is source, no object. Object, no file, object with no source, source, no object. The update date on the source doesn't match the object. The number of go-tos, I have 13 programs that have go-tos. And to Vilm's point, if that remain software interface, we can get right to this problem analysis. We can go to any of the charts that I showed you today. And receiver too small to hold the result. That's a good one. So something's going to blow up at some point because your result in the RPG program can't hold the result. Other issues that have come up, I have 12 unused subroutines, 12 programs that have unused subroutines. I have 33 unused logical views. Well, maybe that's why you're taking a performance hit. Maybe that's why the invoice batch program is taking 4 hours to run, because it has to do an update and you're not even using those logical views. So I tell my customers to come in here and maybe clean up your house a little bit and make you aware of some of these issues that you may be experiencing. That would be X audit. And I'll pass that back over. That concludes the X analysis demo.